Good morning, YouTube. We're going to talk about cheating. How often do you cheat? And who are you really cheating? You'll be surprised at some of the answers people give. We'll be right back. A lot of I was going to say YouTubers, but a lot of new diabetics seem to get into figuring out, they can play games. I don't know about it, but cheating, and they think they're cheating the doctors, and it's not a good thing to get into. So what we're going to discuss is what type of cheatings. I hope not to get into the tricks, but what the outcomes were and how they can affect people with diabetes. I was always accused of cheating, and gotta admit, looking back at it, sometimes it was my blood sugars. But, things happened, and that was the way it was. I can remember my first year of high school. The second year of high school. My blood sugars were all over the place. I spent more time in the nurse's office than I did in class. But we're going to discuss some ways. I'm not going to give you the actual tricks, but we're going to discuss how a person played games and what the actual outcome was. Now, before I go into this, it's important to remember that you always try to maintain a normal blood sugar. But if you're a young kid who's heading into your teens, well, I was 13. My sister took care of me while my parents were away, and who knew? And I wasn't playing games. But we're gonna go in and we're gonna just review things and have a little discussion on them. Number 1 is coming up. Now, a lot of young ladies will stop taking their insulin. And, they will go around and, my doctor hasn't been able to solve my blood sugars. And, my blood sugars are always so high. And they get to a point where they get stomach aches, and it's not very appealing. Good evening. They will start smelling, and people ask, well, what does it smell like? Well, if they let it go long enough, they will start going to diabetic ketoacidosis. And a little trick to tell for parents is put a thermometer in their mouth and watch them. Because diabetic ketoacidosis, there is no fever. Now, there would be if they had the flu, but that's something. If they're just, not taking insulin and such, that could be a reason, and that could be a big problem. So, why would a young lady want to do this? Well, first of all, I don't know too many teenage girls that don't worry about their weight. Oh yes, I always worry about my weight. I gained 4 pounds. Oh, but you know what? Your body's gonna go through many changes. And playing around with your diabetes isn't a way that's gonna help. You're just going to get sick and sick. A lot in our teenage years, we put a lot on the perfect body. And oh, how popular people are. This is not. You are great. No matter, I don't care what you look like. Your body will grow. You don't need to starve yourself. For sure, you don't need to stop taking your insulin. Now, you could end up in the hospital. You could get very sick. I remember when I was going through the private school over on the island, I was having problems with my diabetes. Good evening. And well, not in the same room, because it was back when they were still separating. But there were like 3 or 4 of us that had diabetes, and we were all kind of hanging out together. And she always complained that, she was getting stomach pains and... Surprised when they found out the reason. Her blood sugars were out of whack because she wasn't taking insulin. And I don't really blame her. I blame our society, where everyone's got to be the perfect weight and look the exact same as every other girl. Now, this is nothing new. It's been like that for many years. But young ladies, let yourself develop. Don't starve yourself, and don't stop taking your insulin because you think it's a quick way. You're playing with your life, and it isn't worth it. You're too damn good. Work with what you have. Never do anything that is going to hurt you. There we have a better little discussion now. We'll move on. Now, diabetics are, as the youngsters, are always sort of picked on. Well, they're not always sort of picked on. But they're always perceived different, to be different. And sometimes they will be picked on because you were out of school for a while, you're now sick. Sometimes, especially if you're not talented in PE. It's a reason you can take extra insulin and have low blood sugar. Now, same thing. You may not be great at sports. I was never great at sports. But you have to... Sorry, just watching Nico for a moment. You have to get out there. You have to try. Exercise is the key for better diabetes management. Get out, do what you can. Don't mean you have to be a star athlete, but get out, get your body moving. You like walking? Get out and go for a walk. I used to walk long distances. My family had a summer home up in Cultus, and I think it was Sardis or Yarrow, one of the little towns, which is all probably Chilliwack now. But I would go down there. Oops, we're getting dark here. Sorry, I'm doing this at night again. And that's where all the stores were. There was a store up in Chilliwack, but the store didn't always have like any good comics or anything. Now, granted, this was before I had diabetes, so I loved swimming, but of course we didn't have swimming in our school. And oh my god, the running was just terrible. Anyway, there was this other boy and I who kind of ducked out. And when we had to, we couldn't find an excuse not to be in PE, I would take insulin, and I'm having a low blood sugar. I'm sure, teachers aren't stupid, guys. And I can remember, I didn't break my collarbone, but I had some injury, and I didn't have to take part in PE, and that was a good thing. But you need to get out. Whatever the reason is, if you're taking more insulin, maybe it's just for the attention factor. You don't need to do that. I said this for the girls earlier in my last. Find something that you're good at. You may not find it like tomorrow, and the pressure. You may not be good at running or sports. And trust me, I went to sports-minded school, but I ended up being good at photography. And I think a lot of that helps with your diabetes. Never worry about your ability to do things, but you have to get out and give it a try. Don't let diabetes be your crutch, and B, don't let yourself worry about, I can't do that. Get out there and do it. Just get out there and do it. Get out and try to move. It'll only help. Now, I couldn't run, but I got out there and I walked. And like I was trying to tell you earlier, in Sardis, I'd walk down from Cultus down to Sardis to the drugstore and walk back home. And that was no problem. When I couldn't run in PE, I would walk. And I would walk fast. I wouldn't just saunter, oh wow, look at the birds and the trees. Get out and do something. Whether it's YouTube or whatever. Excel on doing something super. But don't concentrate on taking extra insulin. Just because it's an easy thing to do. Just writing down a number in your logs so that your blood sugars look great. Well, it's not such a big common thing anymore because the pumps and everything sort of pretty well record. Your glucometers record what your blood sugars are. So it isn't so much that diabetics have to keep records of what their blood sugars are. Because everything does it for you. And, there are tools now that your doctors kind of know if you're doing things correctly, or are you sort of just writing numbers down. First of all is a hemoglobin A1C. Now, when it first came out, the joke was amongst diabetics, oh yes, it's your recording, it's your secret that the doctor can tell if you're doing things correctly or not. I wish I had that years ago. I got accused of doing this. I had gone and saved up all my, back then it was urine testing, and I had got all of them on little pieces of paper, and I didn't have a book, so I wrote them on pieces of paper, and they were a mess, and I couldn't take all these into the doctor like that. So I had got a brand new typewriter, and I thought, how nice it would be if I sat there and wrote them all out, well, typed them all out and make them look neat. Well, I went into the doctor's office and I got pretty well yelled at. You just can't come and have all these numbers here and think this is going to do it. And I walked out of there just totally, really upset over it. I had done all my tests, but just because I wrote them down, he assumed I was lying. You know, sometimes doctors, you need to give a benefit of a doubt before you go in an attack. Because at that point, I really wasn't up to staying in, control. Here I had done something and I had made it easy, tried to make it easier for him, and all I got was yelled at for it. I don't think I ever went back. I think I pretty well went on my own. Now then I went and lived with Dad for a while, and we lived in Edmonton, and I went and saw a doctor, and I saw that doctor once, but then I got into Sean again, and they started sending me to the doctors again, and I tried to take good control. Wouldn't always work, but I had to go get my blood tests. I remember I had to go take a fasting blood sugar, and then I could go have breakfast, and then get another test. And then the hemoglobin A1C came in. So, manipulating reports, whether it be the new electronic or in a logbook, isn't going to do anything but harm you more. Because your doctor's going to say, oh, well, look, the insulin regime we have is working great for you. And it could be that it's garbage for you. But you're still going to have the same regime. And I can tell you a little secret. Doctors aren't expecting perfect results. You're going to have highs, you're going to have lows. It's the part of diabetes. So just think that writing a number down isn't, I'll just hide high blood sugar. If you get a high blood sugar, write it down. What it's trying to do is to tell your doctor, are things working? We all want to be perfect, and we're all seem to be expected that, we're doing everything perfectly. And, oh, don't do that, don't do this. So, when you're out there, living your life, if you have an insulin reaction, and what am I trying to say? And your numbers don't jive, and it may be something you did, write it down. Show that you learned from it. Just not caring. Now, in the last response, I wrote that I walked out of the doctor's office that day after doing up my blood sugars, and I was just totally didn't care anymore. And I'm sure my blood sugar showed for a while there. And, at lunch, I would have a chocolate bar, and oh, yeah. And I took my insulin, but you're just gonna get yourself sick. And I cruised by, but just not caring. That's when I really started getting the comments. Oh, my grandmother did that and she lost a leg. And, oh, you're gonna lose this. And, oh, you're gonna die from this. And, oh. And this was even before I went working in a convenience store. And the irony was when I started working in the convenience store, I really watched. I could have diet drinks all I want. Sorry, bumps there. But I watched what I ate. Go right down. But I just didn't care. And I had high blood sugars. I was skinny. Well, I know I'm a little big now. And I keep thinking, yeah, when my blood sugars were high. But now, I don't want to get up all night peeing and having bad breath, a bad taste in my mouth. So I try to watch what I eat. Doesn't always work, but we do what we have to do. So, yeah, you could eat what your friends eat. Oh boy, yeah. The potato chips, the candy. It's always sort of like getting something that everyone else can have. I got to admit, nowadays, it's a lot better. When I was diagnosed and started having diabetes, you could not. You couldn't have a chocolate bar. You couldn't have this. Everything had to be weighed. All had to be. Everything had to be checked out all the time. And that's when you sort of really crave things. And when you go through and say, oh, I really don't care about this anymore, you are hurting yourself. Now, with a type 1, it's ever since we've had to now count carbs. Oh, we dropped the power. Your body is able to digest these candy bars and that easier because you're able to give the amount of insulin required. So, if you're out and you want a soda, you can have that soda, but you can't have it. You can't have 4 or 5 and just take extra insulin for everything. Doesn't work. You need to ensure that you have the insulin that your body needs. Now, I didn't want this to be an easy thing for you, but it's a lot easier than it was. What I did today was I just showed easier ways to get over things and why you should be treating yourself. Nowadays, like I just said, if you want something, you can have one. Just make sure you know what their carbs are and you counted them. You should always care about you. Don't care what other people think. If your blood tests are showing that you're high, maybe you need a modification on the dose. Just because you have to take more insulin doesn't mean your diabetes is getting worse. Oh my God, no. If you got diabetes as a young child and you've been keeping your records and it's shown that your blood sugar is climbing, if it's climbing because you haven't done anything, it could be just your body's growing. It needs more insulin. Doesn't mean that you have failed. And like I said at the beginning or somewhere in this video, is everyone expects, the diabetic will live their life perfectly and will never have any problems. And I keep hearing, if I have a low blood sugar or a high blood sugar, I keep hearing, what did you do? If I say nothing, I have to believe it. And if I screwed up, you screwed up. Learn and move on. But don't cheat. Don't get into playing games because your doctor's going to change your insulin dose and you could get into real problems. You don't want to end up in the hospital because the hospital's not a great place for a diabetic. Trust me, I've been there. Just doctors, nurses, diabetic nurses, and everyone know that you're going to have up days, you're going to have down days. And just because the dose worked for you before, it doesn't mean it's going to keep working. Be truthful to you. Be truthful to your doctors. If you're having trouble, let them know. Don't just try to hide things and everything's going to be, just so super. Your health is the most important. So keep it up. Anyway, have a great day and we'll talk to you later. Bye now.